off your television sets. Turn them off now. Turn them off right now. Turn them off and leave them off. Turn them off right in the middle of the sentence I'm speaking to you now. Turn them off.
Greetings, refiners. How's it going? Welcome to yet another recap of Severance. This is episode 6. Attila, are you like wrinkling up aluminum foil over there or something? Like, what's going on? Like, is that real?
Gosh, I was moving my jacket. Okay,
I just
where are you? Oh my goodness! Can't we please focus on the task at hand? We are here for a purpose.
you knocked me off.
Can we get to what we're here for? That's all I'm asking. Can we do?
Top off roast over there, but
Can we do what we came to do?
I will give you the opportunity to jump right into like your general impressions of this episode since obviously lunch is waiting for you.
My general impressions of the episode were as they usually are. Yet another banger. I enjoyed it very much. I was heartbroken just a little. We'll get to it because I think my man's ain't who he pretending to be. But like I said, we'll get to it.
Yeah, my general impressions are these innies are horny as hell. But yeah, it again. We say it every time. It answers questions, and then it keeps giving you more questions, and it's like it's such a good way of like leading you to the final point.
Mhm.
Instead of like answering everything like all at once and stuff. Like honestly, like the other thing that I'm going to mention at some point is like we still like I know that you guys mentioned it in the last podcast that I wasn't on, but like Cobell still hasn't come back. But Patricia Arquette is in the credits every episode, and there's that you know the light face. So like she's got to come back at some point. So yeah, I'm just intrigued by where we're heading.
Yeah, so I'll try not to be too long with it with my general impressions, but I think this is an episode you get when you set up things in a great manner, like they've done thus far. Because when you look at this episode, like if someone who didn't watch the episode, they're like, "Hey, what is the episode about?" I'm like, "Well, two people snuck off to have sex at work. There's a dinner party with a guy, his work husband, and then there's an odd meeting at like a Chinese restaurant." And they would be like, "What? That sounds stupid." But
that
then
sounds like an episode of Seinfeld.
Exactly. But then I would say, well, this is one of the strongest episodes of the season simply because of like what they've built off so far. And also what I like about this episode, it's very much a we're going to show you, not tell you thing, because it's very subtle. But in my opinion, this episode kind of reestablishes someone as a villain and establishes like a new villain of the show. Like, and by a new villain, they could potentially be like a big bad of the show too. But once again, it's so subtle that if you didn't catch it, then you kind of like missed it. So here's what I think I want to do for like this recap. So I think instead of like going in a linear fashion, I think we can talk about, Mark and Haley. Then we can talk about Fields, Bert, and Irving. Then we could talk about Mark and Helena, and then we could like find somewhere naturally to, well, probably at the end, because I feel like that's when we'll actually go linear. At the end, we could bring up, a Gemma and what that might mean, because if we talk about, Mark and Helena, then I think that's a natural progression to Gemma, because there's something weird there. So yeah, let's jump in with Mark and Haley, and D. I'm looking at your funny notes. So yeah, you have some really good points that you made regarding Mark.
Okay, so we'll start when it starts at the beginning, like them in the office with the tent, because we're born by the river. All right, so the point we were making, for the last 2 episodes, or since the retreat, was about, like you were saying, mostly body autonomy, and me saying assault through coercion on Helena's part. It came to a head today. I think because I'm not sure if Mark was going to tell Helly without Milchick's intimidation. I don't know. What do y'all think? Do y'all think he was going to tell her?
No. He was going to keep that. That doesn't seem like a Mark thing.
Yeah, it seems like he was going to keep it to himself, and then Milchick kind of pushed, and I don't know if he got nervous and then decided he needed to get ahead of it or what. I don't know. But I do think it's interesting that they trust her again. Like, they are fully convinced that she's Helly R. And it tripped me out because while we were watching, when Helly was, he was telling her what happened and she was upset and she had to go take a walk, and I guess I guess she was kind of reckoning with what had happened to her, because this is something that happened to her.
Mm-hmm.
And she had said, even in the stall, this is a tactic to keep us away from each other and figuring it out. So I thought that was cool, because she's like, she did this to fuck with us pretty much, and she didn't let that get to her. Although that's got to be traumatic. It's no different than being micked or roofied. You know what I mean? Like, she woke up and this thing has happened to her. She has no recollection of it. All she knows is that you're telling me this thing happened and I just got to deal with it. So she decided to take the power back, because instead of it being a negative thing that Mark did to her, she wants it very clear that it was something that Helena did. And to, I guess, in a way, solidify that what she feels and how Mark feels about her is true. She wanted to say, okay, well, let's decide to do so. Let us make a decision for ourselves and go and make our own plastic workplace tent, which has to be a serious, hella grand HR violation.
I know it smells crazy.
God.
Oh, it smelled crazy in there. She had on stockings too. Okay, but anyway, let's go do this in our tent. And then they made it a point for her to initiate it, him to say he also wanted to do it, her to find a place, and even right before they were getting down to the nitty gritty, he asked again, like, yes, and she's yes.
Yep, the consent part of it.
Let's go. That was beautiful, because it's a story within a story. It's like, hey, you have to. These are things we agreed to, but there's also a point where I can say I don't want this to be, because yes, I agreed to have this procedure done, but I didn't agree for you to do whatever you wanted to outside of me. So you have to be you and I have to be me. So amongst the whole thing, I do like that part of it. Are we going to do the whole Helly?
Actually, may I interject here? May I
Yeah.
interject here, because I promise this isn't me just being freaky. I actually think is a detail of. So if you go back and watch the scene with Helena and Mark, let's just say the position she's in are very dominant, whereas the position that Helly is in is kind of like allowing Mark in, if that makes sense, without me going into such detail about the positions they were in. I think that's a very important detail, because I think Helena was asserting dominance, which we will see later. So I just wanted to mention that part.
Ball.
And also, he glitched. He glitched the first time, and I know reintegration seems like it does what it wants, but he glitched while he was having sex with Helena. He did not when he was with Helly. So it's like he was fully present with her, and kind of in and out when it came to the other part. Are we going to go to the Chinese part? Because I got a question. The Chinese dinner, or we get to that later.
Let's hold on to that. Joe, is there anything you want to say on Helena, Mark, other than Eddie's are horny as hell? I mean, Helly and Mark.
No, I think Dee captured everything about that. The only thing I was going to mention that I thought it was really cool about, like, even leading up to it, they were still like both like, yes, I want this. Like, I thought that was a really cool notion, considering that she had lost her whole autonomy. And if we remember back to the previous episode, like, Helena says they're animals. Like, they don't have feelings, they don't have this, that blah blah blah, whatever. And so it goes to show that, like, yes, they do have feelings, they do have emotions, they do have all of these things. They are essentially a person inside of a person.
That's exactly what they are. Yeah.
And also, before we transition to the dinner party, I just want to mention, if you go back to Helena and Mark in the tent, once again it's red. but this time it's blue. So I think that's another visual cue that this is indeed, Heli and not Helena. So yeah, let's go to the namesake of the episode, which is the very interesting dinner party between Bert, his husband Fields, and Irving. So
Hold on, before you start, would that technically be a thruple or a quad? Or what's five?
oh,
What's five?
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I was about to say that's more than a double date. That's like a fifth wheel. Yeah, that's like
And unfortunately, the fifth wheel is Fields.
yeah, the
Yep.
fifth wheels. Yeah, that is wild. Yeah, that's
He
crazy.
was low key the third wheel too, but we'll get to it.
So going into this, I thought it was going to be one thing, but it turned out to be something different altogether. So I want to start with the title, like the title of the episode, which is Attila. Like former history buff here, Attila the Hun, very nasty dude. His nickname was the Scourge of God because wherever
Let's
he
get
went,
down to business
yes,
to
yeah.
defeat the Hun.
So yeah, wherever he went, people pretty much were saying he was bringing the devastation of God with him. So just knowing that this episode was named Attila, like, had me kind of like on my toes already. The reason why it's named Attila is kind of like funny, but I think there might be a clue there. So Joe, like, just talk about like as like this dinner party was like unfolding, like what you thought about the entire thing.
It was interesting because at first I thought it was going one direction, and I just thought it was going to be like, oh hey, Fields is going to lash out, and like this was his opportunity. But that doesn't happen until later in the dinner after he's already like drunk off the vino.
Hmm.
Um I really there's two things that I took away from it, and that is they're setting Bert up, or excuse me, they're setting Irving up. This is a setup because during that dinner party, you see Drummond going into his apartment,
Hmm.
and you know it's him also going through the stuff because you can see that tattoo that says
Yeah, the
frolic,
frolic.
which also go ahead.
Real quick, when you say they, are you saying
Lumen.
Fields is a part of it too?
No, I don't think
Okay.
he is. I think it's Lumen. Lumen is there.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
So I think that they're setting Irving up, which also leads me. You guys were talking about this last episode about like the whole father thing. I don't think Drummond is. I think they're speaking of father in terms of like a
Mhm.
holy tier, because like I don't think Lumen would or the Egans or would allow tattoos. Like I just don't see that as like a thing for them. But that whole dinner party, it led me to believe that like Bert's like something else. Like just the subtle ending of him looking the way that he was looking at him at the end, the
Mhm.
whole thing of like Field saying 20 years ago, and he's like, no, it's 12 years ago, and like he's basically trying to get him to shut up and just be
Mhm.
like, hey, you're blowing the cover, like what the hell, man. They're alluding to something with Bert.
So D, you go ahead because there's like a few points that I'm gonna pick out in my long ramble, but you go ahead.
No, I want you to go because you saw some symbolism that I noticed even more the second time with the
Okay, yeah.
fireplace. Yeah.
All right. So obviously there's some more religious themes here. So they mentioned the fact that Fields is a Lutheran. He was like, come to church with me. He was like, and this also speaks to like the duality of a severed person. Like, are they like two individual souls? Because he basically says that, basically Bert is doomed here because Lutherans believe, in my understanding, of like perpetual sin. So basically, what Bert is doing, Audi Bert is doing, is so bad that there's no chance for him at all. But if he has a severed counterpart, maybe that counterpart can, have salvation. But also, very, very subtly, you see Bert dressed in all black, with the fire in the background. And yeah, and this is like the show almost screaming at you, like, hey, this guy, like, if there are like religious undertones here, this guy might be the literal devil. Like, and that's what I gathered from that because like the flames are in the background and he's like, and once again, it's very subtle. Like if you show this scene to someone out of context, they're just like, it's just three people having a dinner party. But within context, it like is very subtle, but it's also like quite creepy too. Also, some of like the decor in the house too lets you know that Bird is like a different type of guy, not what he says he is. So yeah, I think this dinner party just reveals that Bert might be bigger than who he was, and based on I can't remember which one of you said it, but the discrepancy in the time there. So we know
Hmm.
Bert has been involved with Lumen far before he was severed, and his severed capacity might be something else than it was out of Lumen. And I have a question to pose to y'all before we transition to the next part, but I'll hold on to that. So, Joe, were you about to say something?
Yeah, I was gonna say the what you were saying about him with the fire and the darkness and stuff. That's another good juxtaposition of the scene with Mark and Milchek
Mhm.
and pushing the line and stuff. Is that like when Irving goes to meet Fields? Fields is in the kitchen. The kitchen's all lit up. It's
Mhm.
bright. It's very white. It's very not angelic, but and then you have Bert kind of staying over, or yeah, you have Bert kind of staying over here. So it's like that's something I didn't even notice that until you mentioned it just now.
Mhm. Mhm.
Lutherans are getting a lot of PR lately, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah.
funny. What's his name? Solomon Missouri on Blue Sky. He had a long thread about Lutherans and converting people to Luther. It's like it's just
Well, yeah,
so
they are.
like they have like T-shirts and stuff. It's funny. Yeah.
So it's that time. I just wanted to bring up, I noticed I posted that this is a love story. And I say that because outside of the whole he's a scoundrel out here and he's obviously he's going to hell. When he said, if you're going to hell, then what am I gonna do up there, for eternity by myself? And I'm just like, my gosh, that's intense.
Yeah.
Like that is intense. So to me, that just showed the love that Fields has for Irving. I mean not Irving, Bert. And outside of that, he's also accepted him and loved him anyway, being that he's a scoundrel. Because he said that, like he keeps making it a point to say he's not a good person. Like he keeps telling that they're like pretty much throwing it at us. He's not a good
Mhm.
person for whatever reason. And I was just thinking about how hurtful it must be and how heartbroken Fields must be if the whole point of you being severed was that you can go and be this different person so that you can spend eternity with me, and yet you go and find somebody else, and maybe now that's who you want to be with. And not only that, this person gets to have this good version of you here, and assuming when y'all both ascend to heaven, you'll want to be there with him there too. Because y'all, everybody, well, at this point most people have either been in a relationship or have been around people who are enamored of somebody else or attracted to somebody else or whatever else, because you can see a person look at somebody else and immediately think, dang, you like that. You see something you like, obviously.
Mhm.
And there's no way Fields didn't see how Bert was looking at Irving. He wasn't even trying to hide it. It was almost like I will take you in here right now if you down. Fields will be okay, but we can make a thing happen if you with it. And it was kind of hard to watch because I'm like, hey, your husband is right there.
Well,
He's
Fields
right
also
there.
also said something alluding to like basically Bert's for all the hoes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, he is who he is. And again, I think that's what also adds the dagger, because it's like, hey, this person's for the streets. I was cool with that, but because I thought that after this life we'd be together. But yet I see your any is also out here making these
Well,
real connections.
and that's another point to bring up is that if we're to believe like religion and Bible and stuff like that, adultery is a sin, correct? So
Mhm.
what Burton did as an innie is also adultery, even though they didn't maybe like consummate it or whatever. It's still adultery. So does that mean that his innie is also destined to go to hell?
I think it's also bringing up the point, who are you? Which one are you? How much of your outie is your innie and vice versa? Because Irvin, I mean, gosh, Bert, Bert just might be that dude. Like I love the hoes and the hoes love me, and I can't do nothing about that. Like who am I to deny these feelings that we all have for each other? You know what I mean? It is a lifestyle that some people do ethically, and maybe he's just ethically polyamorous.
Yeah. Also, I want to bring this out too, back to the point about like no matter how much you try, like your Audi's personality like ends up in your innie because yeah, Bert, obviously gay man married to a man, like goes and gets severed in his innie, his innie isn't, and in O&D holding hands with Cobell, like he seeks out another man. So that's just another interesting thing that, like even though like you kind of and Joe, you made this point almost like of like the innies being like kind of like adolescent and like find themselves like
Hmm.
yeah, you still part of you still will come out, no matter if you're severed or not. So yeah, I just thought that was interesting too.
I mean, and have you seen the hair? Irvin's hair. I mean, it's hard to
It's good
resist.
hair. It's good
It's good
hair. It's
hair.
good hair.
And last thing, Christopher Walken as a person already has a slightly villainous face. So
Hmm.
it's not hard to believe that he is the bad guy. I mean, he's great. It's weird because he's one of those people who, when he smiles, it's almost like, oh, he's just funny. But
Yeah.
his face in his deadpan, just resting face, very much
It reminds me a
serial
lot
killer.
of he was the villain in the Prophecy films.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it seems like that's who he is, yeah,
Hmm.
as a person.
Hmm.
I don't know.
That
I hope he's not though. I hope it's all a red herring and that he's okay. But the
no.
20 years versus 10 years versus 12 years, I believe feels 100%. Feels ain't lying.
Because
Him
yeah,
being
like
drunk
his
only actually helps, makes me believe him more because stuff be slipping out when you had a little juice.
the
And I
look on
think
his face,
very much
the
20.
fact that yeah, the look on his face and the fact that Bert was like, "Have you had too much to drink?" Yeah, and I think also like we said, the fact that this was coordinated with Drummond going into Irving place and finding those papers. I think it was very much coordinated. So um, here's the question I have for y'all before we move on. What's your guess as to who Bert is or what his role is? Like, if you had to guess, because I have like kind of like some ideas. Who do you think he is?
Dieter.
Huh?
He's Dieter. He is Dieter Egan.
Really?
Nah.
Oh,
Just
okay.
kidding.
I'm gonna say that's a leap.
No. I do think he is though like one of the ground floor Lumen people. I'm 100% convinced it was 20 years ago and that
Yeah.
he's been in there. I'm not sure if it's on the level of him faking like Helena was, like going in and out with the innie and outie, but I think he's one of the people who's aware, so he might know um a little bit more about what he does on the inside than everybody else because he's been doing it so long.
Mm.
But I think he's fully aware of the doings, the goings on of them there. He may even be involved in more than just O&D.
Yeah, he's an executive with emeritus status
Mm.
for me. He participated in the research or the development of the severance process. Like,
Hmm.
Yeah, that's where I was going. I was like, as I was watching this, and I was especially seeing them bring up religion and how, like, basically Bert did something. Like, even if Bert lives the rest of his days, like a good charitable person, he did something so bad that basically can't be erased by redemption or repentance. So I immediately thought to kind of like Oppenheimer. And if you've seen that movie, it's not a spoiler alert, by the way. You go read about it. But if you haven't seen that movie, basically as the movie goes on, you start to see Oppenheimer being like, shit, what am I doing, shit. And so with that being said, I do think if you kind of like match up the timelines and like how long he's been with Lumen, I won't say Bert created like the severance procedure, but maybe he had an involvement. Maybe he was the head of that. Maybe it has something to do with that, in my opinion, because we know that Lumen sees severed employees as slaves. So Bert is Bert is yeah.
I have a question. I know that there is a map, like a Kier map and all that good stuff, but they don't have the addresses of the employees on there. That was something Irving had himself.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you notice, it didn't have all the employees.
Mm-hmm.
How does Bert know where he lives?
How does Bert know where Irving lives?
Yeah.
I mean, if he works with Lumen, then yeah, he knows where he lives. So this is so what Irving has is basically what he's gotten through like his own research, I think. But if Bert is like a big guy with Lumen, then of course he knows where Irving lives.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But he told Irving, "I know where you live."
Yeah.
So that just adds to the point, because I'm saying like the innies or whoever the employees, they don't just know where each other live. It's not something that happens. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. He has to have either done some research on his own, he either followed him home the night that he was at his house, or he's looming like
I need
outside of.
I want to go back and watch season 1 episodes with Bert and Irving, because I want to see how much of a character shift there is with Bert now. Because now that's bringing up a good point. Is he actually severed?
Mm.
I need to see Christopher Walken's like demeanor in those season 1 episodes.
He seems darker outside, but
Yeah.
again, that could be by design, like
Yeah.
with the dark clothes and the fire and all of the hell and brimstone.
Yeah.
Because even when he was in his car, they had it shadowed, so you like saw his eyes. You couldn't really see his whole face. So he seems darker, but I mean like literal darkness. I don't know about like attitude. He seems so much more cheerful inside, but
Mhm.
it's easy to fake that if you don't know. Like for instance, Helly couldn't do it because she just I'm sorry, not Helly, Helena, because her ego wouldn't allow it.
No.
I think she just, anytime anybody challenged her, she immediately slipped. Bert didn't have to worry about that, and he's been doing it longer, so it's a possibility.
Yeah, and I mean, he was also like, your demeanor changes when you're around somebody that you're attracted to, especially like the first time. And
Especially with that hair. I'm telling y'all.
Yeah.
It's great head of hair. It's great head of hair. It is. Glad he got rid of them braids, but it's a thing.
Yeah, so before we move on, do y'all get the sense that also Bert was trying to get a feel? All right, so I guess to frame this question, we must all agree that Bert is somehow involved with Lumen, because the question is, do you kind of get the sense that Bert was trying to like poke and prod to see if, basically Irving had a good poker face or not, or like what he knew? Like, did you get that kind of impression as you were watching that? Like he was trying to
yeah,
kind of fill out Irving. 'Cause, yeah, that's what I was feeling as I was watching that too. Like almost like, I mean, obviously, like we're going through your just to see what you know, but we also want to see like if you're almost like if you're onto us almost.
I wasn't looking at it from that lens, so maybe that's why I
Uh,
couldn't see it. I just saw it was very intense. Like I did notice that he was looking at him very intently, but I read that as like a lusting desire type.
mhm.
Look at that hair, not necessarily what do you know, but it could be. I didn't look that way because I wasn't looking for it. But I did, like I said, I just kept looking because I'm like, your husband's, he's right there. Like, why are you
Mhm.
looking at him like that? He's right there. Fields is sitting next to you.
Yeah.
Stop staring at that man.
well, that's also why he got so drunk.
I'd got drunk too. Like, I'm just supposed to sit here while y'all eat this ham with my cumin glaze,
And give y'all
and
googly eyes to each other.
like I'm not right here. I don't know. And then and I mean, and again, Bert was very much like, hey, so you trying to do this again together, or
Without, without
you want to go to a breakout room, or you want to do this whole
the
whole thing?
audacity.
Yeah, right there in the house.
Yeah.
Your man's is right there.
Yeah.
I know. It's just I could see the scoundrel for sure, because that's bold as hell to be flirting with another person at your house with your spouse sitting right next to you. He wasn't even trying to hide it. Like he was seriously
No.
looking at him like, man, you are something to behold. He was really like he would have unhinged his jaw and swallowed him whole if he could. That's what I got from it.
So yeah, before we move on, just let me say, like this is apropos of nothing, but the cumin glaze really is a banger because like 2 or 3 Thanksgivings ago, I made a Cornish hen and I put like a cumin glaze on it. It was like cumin and yeah, it was cumin and orange glaze on the Cornish hens, and then I like roasted them. Delicious. So feels
Sounds
you might
delicious.
feels you might be onto something. Yeah, you might be onto something.
Denver changed you.
Doing glazes and Cornish hens around here.
Hey man, if I send you the recipe and you make it, you will be yeah, like
Of that
but
vacation.
yeah, as I was establishing kind of like where we would go in this recap of the episode, I actually forgot to like mention something. I forgot to mention um Gretchen and also Dylan. So like let's go into that now, which is entire mess. But yeah, everybody in MDR is getting well. I won't say he got some cutty, but he approached first base. Yeah, he got to first base at least. So yeah, let's talk about Gretchen and Dylan because kind of how I mentioned in like that second recap. This is cheating now. This is
Yeah,
cheating now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's gotten
yeah.
physical, so yeah.
Yeah, my so and then we see a scene later where he's asking her, he's like talking about like wanting to trade in a car or something and be like they're gonna practically give me money, and I'm
Yeah.
just like, okay, so he may have like ADHD or like a hard time. I feel like Aldi Dillon is kind of a loser,
He
like,
Yeah.
dumb.
and he is dumb.
He got yeah.
He dumb.
But they've been together for so long and have 3 kids that it's almost like, well, what am I gonna do? Like, what are we gonna break this up and have 3 kids? So I feel like she's definitely falling for him because that's the type of husband that she wanted and thought she was gonna get and did not get. And yeah, it's just interesting because later he's asking her about that, like, oh, how did the thing go? How did meeting me go? And she's like,
They
oh, well,
they
they
cancel.
canceled it. And it's
And
like,
it's another aspect of me saying this is a love story because her lying to him is the cheating part. So I
Mm.
said it because it got physical, but whatever. So the physical part, the emotional part to me was fine until she lied because now she wants it for herself. And that's when it becomes cheating. Like, I don't want you a part of this. So you're out of it now. It's just me and Dylan G. And I'm sure it's tough for her to see the potential in actual execution because it's clear she's been with him all this time and how encouraging she was even when he was like he a dick, he dumb, she's like no, he just needs to get it together. And you don't talk about people with that kind of sincerity or care if you don't truly love them,
Mm.
right? Because she could have just been like, yeah, kind of, yeah,
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
he is kind of dumb.
Yeah.
But she's just all, it was almost, I could see her, it stung a little bit because she was almost like, hey, don't talk about him like that. You know what I mean? Even though it's you. So I'm sure that was a mind weird thing anyway. But now that she has taken her husband out of it and she just wants it for herself, I think is going to get very bad maybe at home. It's already bad, but now it's going to get bad to the point where she's not going to be able to contain the animosity that she has for him,
Mm.
the disappointment, all of that stuff, and it might come to a head where she's just like, it appears that you're this way because that's what you're choosing to be, because I see what you can be, because that's what you are inside. You're just not doing it out here because you don't want to, and that could be kind of bad.
I had a thought about it after I watched it, and I was like, we're still on the fence on if Irving is reintegrated already or not. We know that Mark is now. I feel like this is going to push Dylan's going to find something out about this, and it's going to push him to do reintegration so he can be like that for his wife.
Mm.
Again, who wins? Which
Well,
one
yeah.
is,
Yeah.
who do you become? Because you want to reintegrate because you want to be a person, right? Outside of that, in Dylan's case, he may not need to reintegrate. He just needs to always be any Dylan. Right?
Yeah.
Because from what I gathered, and y'all answer this for me, from what I got, it feels like reintegration is, like you said, Ronnie, you just get the memories of both. You're I don't honestly know how it works because I've been trying to figure it out even with the back and forth with Mark. Because from what I gathered, the way they were shooting the scenes, it felt like any Mark was remembering stuff, was getting outie Mark's memories, and also vice versa. So when he was in the office and he saw the stuff in the refrigerator, that was any remembering something from outie Mark. And then on the opposite side, when they were at the desk with a nosebleed, that was obviously outie Mark remembering that part of the thing. So I don't know how it works once you become one, because she's flooded the chip. Does that mean she's trying to almost do a Glasgow block so that it won't work when it
So
chimes?
glad
I don't know.
you brought that up about the nosebleed thing, because I know the reintegration process takes, like, they got to keep doing it, and the memories and stuff. But that scene when he's back in his basement reminded me a lot of the first scene of them doing that. And he was kind of looking around and like, what'd you say? Or like something like that. And that, I really don't think we need an added layer to it. But I wonder if reintegration is also similar to time looping. And things are happening at different points, but you're just remembering it like later or earlier or whatever. I don't know.
I was thinking that too because I was like, it almost seems like, and we've kind of been like nudging at this as we've gone on, but we know that once you get on the severed floor, it's almost as if time doesn't exist. Now, we know, like, obviously, like, even though your consciousness is split into two, like, you're not physically two separate people, but kind of how you said with the time looping is almost like, yeah, almost like time, to quote Matthew McConaughey, time becomes a flat circle, and it's like and it's really like he's like regaining time almost by being on the outside in the reintegration process. So yeah, I think there's something here with that, like, because it's almost like, yeah, like we said, time doesn't exist on the severed floor, but once he's out, like, he's starting to remember those things, and it's not like really remembering, it's almost like he's there, like, not just remembering, reliving it like in that moment.
And they do show clocks a lot because I've always wanted to try to catch them. And Milchick made it a point to say you left 3 minutes early, and they stagger it. They leave. There was a point where they were leaving the watches in the lockers. I'm not sure they still do that, and I was wondering if they did, would they even have to manipulate it? Because the Audi Mark, maybe he thinks his schedule is whatever time to whatever time. Because I'm thinking, like, okay, for instance, Ronnie, if you said, "Hey, D and Joe, we're going to record at 3:00," and then you go in and you're not there at 3, we're going to be like, "Well, what the heck were you doing? Where were you?" But you have no concept of time while you're away. So when you come back, you would know that something was off, because we would say, "Well, no, we were here at 3. You weren't here." So do they just not make plans? Do they make it so that they? I don't know how they could manipulate it outside of actual, time.
All I'm gonna say is this. So Ben Stiller has said on several occasions, pay attention to the watches and clocks because no one has gotten it yet. And he's very he notoriously, like, looks at the comments and looks at the Reddit threads, and he was like, no one has gotten it yet. The watches and the clocks. So with that being said, this is a very surface level thing that I think could possibly be that could be a possibility. I'm gonna invoke Dragon Ball Z here. So when Goku, is training, basically he goes in the time chamber, and the time he spends in the time chamber, he might spend a year in the time chamber, but when he comes out, it's only been a few days. And I'm not saying like So we already know that the Severin employees probably work more than a simple, 9 to 5. We know when Milchick is leaving, who isn't a Severin employee, we see him leaving and it's like night. It's like night.
Mm-hmm.
So could there be an additional layer? And Joe, I know you said like it'll be interesting if they introduce an additional layer, but could it be time works differently on the severed floor?
Yeah, I really think that it could. Like, and it brings me back to my point I made like a few episodes ago about like Lumen seems to target people that have emotional PTSD,
Mm,
depression, like those type of things. People, when you like speaking to somebody who did go through a bout of depression a few years ago, it's like I wasn't keeping track of time. Like I was ready
mm,
for the day to be over, and okay, I could go to bed. Like that's it. Like people who go through that stuff aren't really like thinking about like plans or
mm,
whatever. They're just trying to get through life.
And Mark wanted less time as himself, so
mm,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I think there might be something with time here. What it is, I don't know yet, but the fact that Ben Stiller is like, hey, pay attention to the watches and the clocks, because no one has gotten it yet. I think that might be something. So one thing before we move on to Mark and Helena, I just want to go back to Gretchen and point out why I think she might be attracted to Annie Dillon, because there's a visual clue about like the type of person she is. If you look in the background above their kitchen table, it's like dispatcher of the month. So of course, dispatcher of the month would be attracted to like refiner of the month. And I think like the fact that Audie Dillon has lost that, she wants, obviously she's attracted to Andy Dillon. So she's gonna be like, yeah, tell me more about this waffle party. Yeah. So
finger traps, you say.
yeah. So just pointing that out. Yeah. To preface this, after I watched this episode, I hopped in the group chat. I was like, there's a scene in this episode that I think is like the single best scene in the entire series, simply because it's kind of like so sinister and like it's really kind of like creepy, and you wouldn't know it unless you paid attention. Yeah, the scene in a Chinese restaurant, because once again, shout out to Britt Lauer, because the way she plays Helena is like so creepy. And
She's acting her ass off, man.
she is like how she tries to like manufacture a smile, like how her hair is actually different. She really does seem like two different people. Like she's doing a great job, but there are just a lot of things in this conversation where once again she is like a certain dominance. I will say I this season, the Severance, I've kind of been like not in the Reddit threads as much, but a lot of people have been in the Reddit threads, and I think they're trying to say like could this be Hel? Like, no, this is Helena, so let's establish that. But also, this was Helena saying like, Mark, I can find you anywhere. And let me point this out. This is something I noticed before I went to Reddit, because I was like, this sounds familiar. Where have I heard this from? But the music playing in the Chinese restaurant is the same music from the egg bar. So I think it's showing that Lumen's reach is indeed everywhere. So yeah, I just want to break down the scene. So she sees Mark eating alone. She asks him if he remembers anything about the overtime contingency, which isn't really what she's asking. She's asking
Hold
something
on.
else.
Yeah, I just gonna say she didn't say OTC. She said the other
Yeah,
day or other night.
yeah, the other night. Yeah. So she's asking about something different altogether. So yeah, and also the fact that she said Hannah instead of Gemma. Once again, like subtle detail, but it's also very important because she did that on purpose. She
She did.
Mm-hmm.
knows.
She know.
She knows. And she called her Hannah. So
She called her Hannah. I think she was trying to get up. She was trying to gauge the reaction.
mhm,
So how much do you still care about her? I'm
mhm.
gonna say her name wrong. Let me see how upset she's gonna get. Right? Because don't mispronounce my like you. Not even that you not mispronounce. You gave her a whole nother name. You know what her name is.
You know what her name
I
is.
know what her name is.
Yeah.
And that's why I was asking y'all how much does he remember. Now, this is before the flooding the chip. Did he recognize her from his memories before that?
I think
Because because remember, okay, so when he had the nosebleed, remember she was in there with him.
yeah.
I don't know if he remembered her. I know they showed flashes of Miss Wong, but they didn't show flashes of Helly. So initially I thought, oh my goodness, he recognizes her because they just had sex, right? So
he does recognize it.
So he remembered the tent already. Now they certainly showed it after she flooded the chip that he recognized her face. But I was wondering if he recognized her even before that because he was already kind of uneasy. So I'm like, does he recognize that she's Helena, and does he know? Like, does he remember the tent? Like, or does he recognize that she's Helly and Helena? That's what I'm wondering. Does he know at that point?
I think he was just creeped out at the beginning because somebody was staring at him.
Mm-hmm.
I think towards the end of the conversation, he was putting it together, and that's why he like kind of was like, I gotta go, and then he was like storming out of the restaurant and like, hey, let's go fucking do this right now. I saw it on Reddit last night or the night before, but there was somebody mentioned like the cool like symbolism of the nosebleed, and it cuts to a shot of Helly and she has blood on her hands, and so there's something, we're getting closer.
Because she literally had blood on her hand. So with the weird thing with him, do you think he read out, like, what pushed him, catapulted him to be like, screw it, let's go do it right now? Was it fear? Was it her? Like, what was it about it? Because I think he was rightfully creeped out by her, intimidated by her. Like, something set him off. And I'm wondering if it was just Helena as the head of Lumen, or he had some sort of memory of her being both.
Yeah, so here's what I think. When I say that he recognized her, I think he recognized her as Helena Egan, the head of Lumen.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that all right, so we know Mark is already dubious of Lumen, and also he knows from any Mark that, Gemma is alive. So the fact that she mentions his wife, and now I think you kind of see him like, okay, like, is all interconnected, because why is the heir of the company I work for here talking to me? So they're onto me, or they know something. So yeah, I think that's what prompts him to finish the reintegration process, because he's like, all right, I'm losing time, so I need to figure out what they know, because if the top floor exec would come down and talk to me in a Chinese restaurant after hours, then they clearly know something. I think that's what prompts him to flood the chip and finish the reintegration process.
She likes him too. Like, did y'all notice that she
much.
was like inching? She's trying to see how close she could get to him, and he's kind of like, "Girl, what are you doing?" But she was doing that whole thing where she was kind of walking up to him and she'd look down at his lips, and I'm like, "Girl, relax."
She's ready to knock him.
She knows they had sex, right? She knows him and Helena had sex, right? She knows everything. Does she know him and Helena had sex? I mean, not Helena, Helly.
No, there's no. I don't. At least I don't think.
Well, I mean, outside of, I'm sorry, this is gonna sound crass. Outside of possible evidence, that she would have noticed, would she know?
Like she leaves the 7th floor, she's like, "Look, somebody bust me open today."
I know. What is this? I'm sorry, just saying though. Like, why? This is not the way I put her underwear on this morning. Why are they inside out? What is happening? Where are they even? Didn't I put her on some panties this morning?
But no. So in all seriousness,
as soon as she got out the elevator,
it's
a little sore.
She doesn't know. In all seriousness, like, other than like, so yeah.
Just saying, you would.
I think in that situation they would be cautious to be like, everything has to get put back properly.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
We're assuming he wore protection.
I mean, I don't think there's condoms on the 7th floor.
That's what I'm saying. And maybe that's not a thing. I don't want to get into an insecure Issa Rae thing, but right. So that's what I'm saying. So can she Can she get pregnant?
We're gonna find out in a few
which
episodes.
We're gonna see, huh?
which is
On the next episode of Dragon Ball Z.
which is I didn't want to go there so soon,
Same.
but I think that is going to be a thing because
Only takes one.
remember how I said the Orc Bow scene would kind of resurface in another way. I think this, because they're so close together, I think this is going to resurface in that way. I think she might, you know,
He didn't know what a deviated septum was, so I
yeah.
mean, I'm just saying it doesn't seem too far fetched that they might not be concerned about STDs and pregnancy and such.
Yeah, like he
They have the
knows
concept
nothing.
of it, I'm sure.
He knows nothing of prophylactics or
No, because like I said earlier, it's like they're adolescents. Like
Mhm.
they're basically just horny teenagers right now.
Yeah,
They shared vessels.
two vessels passing in the night, but
This vessel looks real good, and I think I can jump across.
yeah. But yeah, so we finished the episode with the reintegration process, and I want to say this too. So for some reason, which I think you gotta like look inside to see why you feel that way, but I didn't realize like so many people are like skeptical of Ringabi. Like I don't think she's no good. I really think it's a tricky process and she might not know how to like do it like in a seamless manner, but I don't think she's like secretly working because that
No, because that defeats the whole purpose of Severance.
And she
yeah.
killed boy. What's that Granger? So it's been
Yeah, like,
extreme. She's the one person I haven't been skeptical about at all. Like not even I didn't even think about being skeptical of her.
but also
No.
it's like she's trying to make all this work in somebody's basement with
Yeah. Yeah.
not proper sanitation, not the proper equipment. Like she's trying to make it work however she can.
Don't cut your
Yeah.
head open in the basement. It'll be fine.
Yeah, so
The hole's already there.
Ugh.
so yeah, when remember when I said I thought reintegration was one thing? This is what I thought it was because that episode, I like that part of the episode. I could not like
No,
look at it.
I couldn't do it. No.
Is it
Yeah.
gonna push it out? You know, in the credits it pushes
Hmm.
it
Yep.
pushes it out. Is that what the flooding's gonna do? Like push it up?
So this was my read on the flooding. It basically is like a pretty invasive process to. So instead of like using basically almost like the test to merge his two the two consciousness. It's just they are basically flooding the chip so the chip like no longer works. It's almost like doing that. So almost to like, all right, so because obviously you can't extract the chip, right? So it's like flooding the chip, so the chip is like kind of like defunct, in my opinion.
So it's short circuiting it, right?
Yeah, it seemed like it was anchored in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Like it was
yeah, no,
it's in there.
it has like two little things poking out, so it's in there.
Hey, can you talk about Milkshake and Wong right quick?
Yes, I can. So I'm glad you mentioned that because that's a good place to offboard. So last episode last recap we mentioned that Ong might be associated with the school, and we kind of get confirmation of that because she is now part of a fellowship. And I think mentioning that makes it even wilder that she was trying to like put Belichick in check because I'm like, you are here on the fellowship, and I have to grade you. So like, where do
What
you
did you do?
where do we do it here? So yeah, I think this episode shows that so it confirms that thing that there might be that connection with Cobell there because Wong is part of the school. She's going through a fellowship and it might be almost like how we tell like quarterbacks like, hey, go apply for the enterprise management and training program. Like, this might be that. It's almost like a management and training fellowship for Lumen. But I think when he told her to go away because he was going to be busy. You see him basically trying to convert into the company man. He's shedding away his like it's pretty sad, but he's shedding away the few things that make him milkshake to become a company man. And yeah, I'm curious to see how that plays out.
What you were saying about like when you said in the group chat like there's a scene in there that like you thought was really haunting. That's the one I thought you meant. Was when he
Okay.
was looking in the mirror and you see it just slow
Mhm.
zooms in and then eventually it's him just looking at himself in the mirror.
Bro.
Grow up.
Mhm.
And like what was the whole thing with the paper clips?
That was in his review.
Yeah.
They told him they were backwards.
That's right.
Yeah.
I forgot all about that because his hand was trembling after that.
I wanted to bring up, so he's the big words thing, I think, is twofold. It is, to me, almost stripping him of his humanity in a sense.
Yeah.
Because the grow part, like, you need to, the use of the big words. So he went from, you need to, eradicate childish folly, to, you need to get your shit together, you need to grow. And when you say one word commands, usually you say a one word command to who? Your dog. Sit, stand, roll over, eat, whatever else. And if that is the grow part, I thought was just like genius, because he's sitting here, he's saying it to her in his mind, right? Like, this is what, if she don't like big words, then fine, this is what she'll get, while also chastising himself, using that same one word to make himself subservient to Lumen. So it's just like a all encompassing, like you said, be the company man, train her to be the subservient company woman once she comes up to whatever else. And that in turn is going to spill over into MDR, because he's already said, I'm tightening the reins. So he's probably going to be meaner to them too.
I don't like the direction this is going with him.
I don't like it just because with him. And then he looked for an ally in Natalie, and he's
She's
not
not.
getting it. Yeah, so
She's a company woman.
he's just kind of out there. I'm interested to see how that's going to work. I really want to see his life outside of Lumen, but that might be by design, because he might not have one.
That's
I
true.
doubt, like, because he's the person who, like, and everyone has this person. They are sending emails and dropping stuff in the team's chat at 2 a.m. on a Saturday. I'm just like, I am living my life. I'm sorry. So I
Do it.
feel like he's the person who knows that Lumen might call him, like, the drop of a hat, and he has to be there. So I don't think he has.
Well, yeah, like the night of the
Mhm.
OTC event, like what time was that? And he's out on his motorbike just going and firing everybody.
Yeah.
Like that's
He was
it
there.
was mad dark. So
Yeah.
And he was still at the office.
yep.
All right then. So yeah, maybe, like I said, it's by design. Yeah, but Wong. Oh, and you see, she was trying to go sit at his desk. He was like,
Yeah.
do that out
Is
there.
it a your
You can
Changed her little face right quick too. No, she's a little
your desk?
pistol. That's the one everybody need to be watching.
Yeah.
I don't trust her one bit. Which
Yeah,
is
because
crazy to say that I don't trust a child.
You shouldn't trust a child though that's in that setting. It's
That's
not.
true.
She shouldn't be there.
She should
It's
not
one
be
thing.
there.
Like, that's truly.
She's like 19-year-old in real life, so it's okay to hate a 19-year-old. But no, I think
I mean, have you ever considered she got negative vibes?
yes. Why your baby looking at me like that, dog? But yeah, but no, I think in that environment, like a person with ambition in that environment is like very dangerous, and I think that is exactly Miss Wong. Because also, not to mention this, Milchick had another infraction on his record this episode, which is 2 employees at 6 on the clock. Just tossing that out. Yeah, not the first time, the second time. So,
Yeah, but I'm saying the first time too. So they had
but that's
sex
what I'm
on a
saying.
retreat, which was out.
Yeah. This is post, like,
So now he got another one. I
performance.
see. Okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Performance.
You have yet another one. You just
Yeah.
the pimp out
Like
here.
this.
Just letting them do whatever they want.
You told you this. Yeah, I thought we fixed it.
You worried about the paper clips? What you need to be doing is watching your people. Oh, and y'all notice that nobody was on the floor. Like, they made it a point to show us that nobody was working.
Yeah.
So no milkshake. Might have a
So,
problem.
numbers down. Everybody gets credit. Like, just bad all around milkshake.
Yeah, because they were like, Mark won't do it without her. And I'm like, well, he ain't going to be doing it with her now because
Yeah,
he going to be doing something else. They pitching tents.
yeah. About that.
Yeah. Sorry. It was right there.
But yeah,
You trying to
that
tell
is
me that wasn't purposeful? The writers did that.
it was
That
they
wasn't
did
me. I
they
just
did
caught it.
they did. But yeah,
Devin.
that is
Is Devin going to blow everything up? I feel like Devin's going to be the one that's like, hey, something's going on. Let's do something about it. Because I don't think she's going to be happy with Ragabi.
oh yeah, so we forgot to yeah, so we could mention Devin on our way out. So yeah. So obviously she is kind of like bound by her like lack of knowledge of the severance process. I will say I am glad that even though the severance process is a little sketchy, I'm glad that you know it kind of happened this way because her plan B was like, hey, let's call up the who are they the Artetas, which would have been really bad. Like, hey, my brother works at Lumen. By the way, and yeah, he knows something is going on. Can you help him out? That wouldn't have been great.
No.
So yeah, I think this is kind of this will kind of like bring Devin into the main plan now. So like I think obviously she's gonna be like a little sketchy about the reintegration process as much as she was about the severance process altogether. But I think this kind of like brings her officially into like the plans now. Like she's in the game now. So
Who are the people? What do they call them? The world. Dang, what's the name? The people that threw the paint on Fields. Do you remember?
I don't remember. What was their
I
name?
can't
I
remember. I
don't
thought it was
remember.
like the world something. The people of the world. Anyway, them. She might be as radical as they are at this point.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I'm saying. She might like go find them and be like, "Hey, do you think Petey's daughter comes back into play, or did they just introduce us to them to show us that people have lives outside of it?"
I think it's
Yeah,
people have lives.
Okay.
yeah, yeah. I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to mention before we dip is something you guys mentioned on the last episode was about Mark's true emotions and how he was really like kind of stiff with Helly once. And I understand because they're still trying to figure out like,
Mhm.
is she really Helena or is she Helly? But I had this thought about Mark being a dick, and we see it several times throughout kind of this season and a little bit last season. And it's, was he a dick to Gemma and Gemma left and that's why she's gotten, she's gone, and maybe he feels guilty. Both his innie and his outie both feel guilty about it.
Mhm.
He
And
was
that's why
definitely
he's
a dick to Gemma because he was a dick to Devin when she came over to
Yeah.
check on him. So that's 100% the case. Yeah.
yep.
I believe that to be true because I'm glad you said that because that's what I thought when Devin came in and she was trying to help him and he was like, "Well, I'm doing it on my own and all this stuff," and I was like, I wonder
Mm-hmm.
if this is what it was like to live with him because I have a brother. So if my brother starts being a dick to me, I'm just gonna tell him, "Hey, you need to chill the fuck out," and I have no worries about him divorcing me or being upset with me or giving me the silent treatment because I don't care like that. You know what I mean? I'm not in love with him, but I'm sure it's a difference with your spouse because you have to be there for them and care about their feelings and support them and all of that. So I think that would be the difference between the two of them, which would also explain why they were close because Devin may have understood
Mhm.
Yep.
Gemma in that
Mhm.
way.
I
Tim, I'm
think
with you.
so. Yeah. Yeah, thanks for raising that point, Joe. Also, one thing I want to point out before we officially depart. I don't know the significance of it, but purple sweaters. Gretchen had one. Gemma had one in this episode where she reappeared. So just something to keep an eye on. The purple sweater.
Well,
Red and
the
blue make
red and
purple.
blue, yeah.
Mhm. Just
That means here because you could be both good and bad if you're a
yeah,
complete person. Or what I mean, good and bad, you can have both. As far as the innie and outie has been, those things are separate. I think
yeah.
it's worth,
There's also
putting it in
something
there. You
about
know what I'm
Gretchen.
saying?
pocket and won't say, but I'll see if it comes to fruition later. I'm not gonna mention it on this episode, but
I mean, it ain't like you're gonna be here.
It's
yeah,
true.
you're right. You're right. I'm still not gonna mention it. But anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I might not be here next week or going forward, but you have these two lovely people. I hope this is the side you're on when I actually edit the video. But you have these two lovely people to basically usher you the way through the remainder of the season. So as usual, thanks for watching, y'all. A lot of y'all have been watching. Make sure you smash that like button. Make sure you subscribe. Let us know what you think in the comments. But yeah, until next time, peace.
Peace.